Good afternoon. Welcome to the Johnson County Public Policy Council's Forum for the Overland Park Mayor. I'm Tom Robinette, a member of the Overland Park Public Policy and Advocacy Committee. I'd like to welcome you today to this forum. For the next 60 minutes, we'll have the opportunity to hear from the candidates about the issues important to the business community and the Overland Park community at large. To start, let me introduce and welcome our candidates. First on my left, we have Mike Czinege. And on my far left is Curt Skoog. Our format today will be as follows. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Then each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to a series of questions prepared by the Public Policy Council. Then we'll conclude the forum with a 2-minute closing statement from each candidate. We'll alternate back and forth. Prior to starting, the order of speaking was done by lot, and Mike Czinege was the winner, I guess. He's got the #1 position, and we'll start. So, Mike, turn things over to you for the opening statement.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Mike Czinege. I'm a 31-year resident of Overland Park, and I've raised 3 children in this wonderful community. My youngest son, Todd, and my wife, Nancy, are out there in the audience. Hello. Overland Park is a great community, but it is faced with significant challenges that must be addressed to keep Overland Park a desirable place for our children and grandchildren to live. We're faced with rising taxes, rising crime, indiscriminate rezoning, excessive apartment growth, and infrastructure debt that we will talk about. The City Council just approved a 10% property tax mill rate increase in the 2022 budget to fund public safety resources. That increase wasn't necessary to pay for those public resources. If we take out that entire line item, the budget for the remainder in 2022 is 9% higher than estimated 2021 and 31% higher than actuals in 2020. Rising crime. You might hear that crime in Overland Park prior to 2020 for the prior 5 years was flat, and that's true in the aggregate. However, there's been a shift in the mix of the crime in Overland Park from minor crimes to more serious crimes. From 2016 to 2020, violent crime, rape, murder, aggravated assault is up 37%, and property crime is up 36%, according to the Kansas Bureau of Investigation crime statistics. Rezoning and apartment growth is causing overcrowding in our neighborhood schools, congestion in the roads, and runoff for flooding. You'll also might hear about that there's a balance of 60-40 in our community of houses to apartments. According to the 2021 Johnson Housing Study, from 2012 to 2019, there were 6,475 more apartment units built in Overland Park. So if it was 60-40 before, it can't be 60-40 now. In addition, we have an enormous road debt that is $225 million of roads that can no longer be resurfaced.
Thank you, Mike. I neglected to mention, we have a timer sitting here at the table on my right. I'll give you a heads up as far as the time, the 2 minutes, and then the stop sign. So anyway, thank you very much. Curt, opening statement.
Well, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Overland Park Chamber of Commerce, for hosting this. I'm running for mayor of Overland Park to continue to improve the quality of life that we have in Overland Park. Last week, you may be aware that we were ranked the 7th best place to live in the United States by Money Magazine. That doesn't happen by accident. This incredibly special place that we call home is a product of visionary leadership. Starting in 1960, when the founders of Overland Park created Overland Park out of property that nobody else wanted, none of our neighboring cities, those leaders envisioned a city that was built on strong, safe neighborhoods, quality schools, and jobs. Fast forward 60 years to now. Today, Overland Park is the economic engine of the state of Kansas, and it is built on strong, safe neighborhoods, quality schools, and jobs. For the last 16 years, I've had the good fortune of sitting at the table with Carl Gerlach, our current mayor. And the results that we have produced is pretty amazing. We've constructed dozens of single-family neighborhoods and thousands of single-family homes. We've built quality of life amenities like the Arboretum, improvements to Deanna Rose Farmstead. We've built community centers. We've built and improved our park system. We've added trails and bike paths. We provided for more police officers and more firefighters. We've supported our education partners. We've attracted over $540 million of private investment inside 435. Our existing neighborhoods are stronger. Our existing neighborhoods are attracting young families again, and our property values are increasing. As mayor, I will build on these strengths. Just like the transition from Mayor Ed Eilert to Mayor Carl Gerlach, I am ready to keep Overland Park moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Curt. I'll move on to the questions this afternoon. As I mentioned before, the questions have been prepared by the Johnson County Public Policy Council. The candidates have not seen these questions, at least in the particular form prior to today's forum. So we'll start, Curt, you'll be the respondent to the first question.
All right.
Question is, a poll released yesterday by the Kansas City area home builders and the Overland Park Chamber Foundation found that 75% of the respondents believe that the city is going in the right direction. What is your reaction to this, and do you agree or disagree?
Well, thank you for that question. As a city, in my time on the city council, we take citizen satisfaction surveys on a regular basis. And as a council member, I've had interactions with people across my ward and across the city, sitting at dining room tables and at home association meetings. And as I knock on doors, I hear the same thing, is that people love Overland Park. People love the quality of life we have here. They love the amenities that we bring, and they are happy. So I'm not surprised at that point. There's always work to do. We've been working on activities for the last 16 years that I've been on the council, and we'll continue to do that. One thing I think it's important to understand is when people throw around percentages, that really doesn't give you much perspective when you look at actual numbers. So I'd just like to take a second here to talk about the crime statistic numbers. My opponent throws out big percentage changes in violent crime in Overland Park. And I would just like to point out that I couldn't find the numbers he refers to. I did go to the KBI, and from 2018 to 2020, Overland Park did have a 10% increase in violent crime. We went from 398 to 438. That's 40 additional violent crimes. Any violent crime is bad. The sheriff, in the same time period, had a 31% increase in violent crime. The sheriff's report showed that he went from 61 crimes to 80 crimes, an increase of 19. That's 3.6 crimes per 1,000 people in the sheriff's district, in the unincorporated part of the city or the county. And in Overland Park, we're at 2.2 crimes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure, thanks.
Okay. Question is, a poll released yesterday by the Kansas City area home builders and the Overland Park Chamber Foundation found that 75% of the respondents believe the city is going in the right direction. What's your reaction to this, and do you agree or disagree?
First of all, Overland Park is a great place to live. I said that in the opening. And I do agree that the residents of Overland Park enjoy living here. However, is it going in the right direction? I believe that it is not. I believe there are enough significant things that are changing with rising crime and apartment overdevelopment that many of the residents of Overland Park are very concerned about that. We knocked on 13,000 doors in the primary, and almost exclusively everyone that opened the door said they were upset with the number of apartments that are being developed in Overland Park and the number of tax giveaways that are happening as a result of that, and the overcrowding, congestion of schools and roads. When I was on La Mega, a Hispanic channel, one of the callers in asked, why is there so much construction going on? It looks like a concrete jungle out there. It reminds me of New York City. Why are we doing this to our city? So that and some of the other budgetary issues that we're not getting full disclosure on about why there was a 10% tax increase, there are a lot of people that are upset. According to the crime statistics that Curt went through, 438 is the ending number for 2020. However, if you go back to 2016, the number was 307. So there's a 131 count increase in violent crime since 2016. And on property crime, 2,795 to 3,984. If you doubt that that's an increase, substantial, read next door. The number of neighbors that are having their cars broken into, their homes broken into, it's happening and it's real. And if we don't do something about it with our police organization and crime, reduce crime, it's not going to be a safe place to live for any of us.
Thank you. Mike, you'll start with question number 2, which is, what do you believe are the greatest challenges the city faces over the next 10 years, and how would you address them?
We've talked about a lot of the challenges that are that we're facing in Overland Park. The greatest challenge, as I said, are rising crime, proliferation of high-rise, high-density apartment complexes, state and local taxes, and neglected infrastructure. We just talked about rising crime. The percentages are high, and the increases in actual numbers are high, and it's affecting all of us. That's another thing that the people talked about as I went door to door talking. The intrusion of apartment complexes are not just causing increases in the roads, but if you look at it, there were 2 apartment complexes, one that was approved and one that's on the drawing board just in my neighborhood. That's going to, all 450 new apartment units are going to feed into the same school. It's already at 110% capacity. It's causing water runoff and flooding, destroying the Deer Creek Golf Course and other areas around Indian Creek and Tomahawk Creek. And again, you'll hear we've had a balance of 60-40 with the homes. It's changing. If it was 60-40 in 2012 with almost 6,500 new apartment buildings, it's certainly not 60-40 now, and that's affecting the way that the residents perceive their quality of life in Overland Park. These things can be addressed. I'm a capitalist. I want growth. I want businesses to grow. I want there to be new residents, but we have to do it in a way that's acceptable to the residents of Overland Park, so it's not destroying their neighborhoods with spot zoning that's good for the developer and bad for the resident, with all the overcrowding and all the other unintended benefits of this stuff. And we should do it without tax incentives for things like prairie fire, where you pay between 0.5% and 1.5% more in sales tax to pay back the star bonds.
Okay, thank you, Curt. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Please.
Question is, what do you believe are the greatest challenges the city faces over the next 10 years, and how would you address them?
Thank you for that question. So the biggest challenges that we face as a city is we're a growing city, right? We're now 200,000 people. And we have a lot of new residents in Overland Park through that growth. That's why I have a community, next year we already have in the budget a community discussion for us all come together and build a consensus about how the next 10 years of Overland Park, what we want to do. We need to talk about housing. There's a shortage of housing in the United States, in the state of Kansas, and in the Kansas City metropolitan area. We need to, and we've been working on this, building more townhouses, more housing options for the residents of Overland Park. As I knock on doors, I meet a lot of people who've moved to Overland Park to be closer to their kids and grandkids. And they're all looking for additional options of how they can live in our city. We also need those to be, those housing options to be more attainable. We need housing that our police officers, our firefighters, and our teachers can afford to live in Overland Park. We also need to take a look at climate. We are having our biggest impact from climate change is rain. rain events. We are experiencing more rain than we've had in the past. So one of the other discussions we're going to have is how do we as a community want to deal with the impact of those rain and climate effects with us. We also need to talk about infrastructure. We do have aging infrastructure, and we've been doing a great job of maintaining our infrastructure. But a lot of it's reaching 60 years old or older. And we need to come together and have a discussion about how we want to continue to improve our infrastructure. In recent years, we've added $2 to $3 million to our capital budget to replace more residential streets. We've added hundreds of thousands of dollars to our curb and sidewalk replacement. And so we need to continue to work on making sure that our infrastructure meets the needs of our community.
Okay, thank you. Question number 3, and Curt, you'll start off on this one. How will you specifically engage with business leaders to make Overland Park prosper? Please be specific.
Well, one of the benefits of being on the city council for 16 years and being on the Mid-America Regional Council Board for 16 years, and before that, being involved with the Shawnee Mission School District, being a local business person myself, gone through Leadership Kansas and the Centurions leadership program through the Kansas City, Missouri Chamber of Commerce, is that I have a deep understanding of how our economy works, what our businesses need to be successful. And I refresh that on a regular basis through conversations with business leaders in our community. We need to make sure that we leverage important organizations like the Overland Park Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber, and the Asian Chamber to make sure that we have as a city, we have a good understanding of what they need to be successful. The number one thing that I hear from them today that they need to be successful is talent. They're all struggling to find talented employees to make their businesses work. And that is the reason that we are building the community that we're building in Overland Park. We want a community that is attractive to young professionals to come start their career or stay here if they have graduated from one of our wonderful educational institutions. So as a city, we've already started building a community that attracts talent so they don't go to Nashville, so they don't go to Dallas, so they don't go to Denver. The ranking of the 7th best place to live in the United States is an example of that. And so my history and my track record with working with businesses is to listen, to understand what they need and how we as a city can make sure that they're successful here in Overland Park.
Thank you. Mike, how will you engage with business leaders to make Overland Park prosper? Please be specific.
Sure. Thanks for the question. Good question. Business is what I've been doing for 44 years before I retired. I've worked with CEOs, CFOs, boards of directors with companies from New York to Southern California. I know how they think. I know what they need to grow their businesses. And it is a function of talent, having a talent here. It is a function of having good education systems, and you need to have a community where people want to grow and live with good schools and all the things that we talked about. So most of it is one-on-one with those businesses that are in Overland Park and in Johnson County to find out what they need to do to grow. But I don't think we need to stop in just Overland Park or Johnson County. We have a great community, and especially if we address some of the outstanding issues that I talked about, we need to get outside of Overland Park, outside of Kansas. There are communities and states, California, New York, Oregon, that are bleeding businesses. We need to be out in front of those businesses and attracting them to Overland Park and working with the chamber to make it attractive for them. By the way, since Texas has left the Big 12, we need to bring the Big 12 back here. We used to have the NCAA. Let's get a college community back here again. And as far as moving to Kansas City, my soon-to-be daughter-in-law lived in New York City. She came here for COVID for 2 weeks. It ended up being a lifetime. She stayed with us for 8 months, and she has a job here in Kansas City. She loves the community, and she loves where she works.
Okay, thank you. You're up first on the next question. which is Overland Park rates highly in countless community assessments, yet competition with other communities for jobs and quality employers is fierce. What tools would you employ as mayor to ensure Overland Park remains competitive in economic development?
Again, as we've talked about, a lot of it is to make sure that this is a community where people want to live. And it is, especially if we address some of the issues that are out there. I think one of the things that we need to embrace even more than we have is Johnson County Community College. It is an incredible resource that we have in our community to train people. Right now, only 26% of the people that start at Johnson County Community College actually graduate. I think that's something the city council, the chamber, and everybody else, as we look for new trustees for that school, that we can get more graduates out of that school to fund the things we need to fund in terms of finding talent that are here and bringing businesses here. And I think that's the key to it. And it doesn't have to be all just white collar jobs. One of the biggest things at Johnson County Community College that they're looking at now is diesel mechanics for some of the businesses that are in and around Overland Park that need those kinds of things. So I think that's one of the keys to doing it, is looking at the entire organization and perspective of the community and finding out what we can do to attract businesses and people that want to live here, work here, get educated here, and stay.
Okay, thank you. Curt, I'll repeat it. It's kind of a long question. Overland Park rates highly in countless community assessments, yet competition with other communities for jobs and quality employers is fierce. What tools would you employ as mayor to ensure that Overland Park remains competitive in economic development?
Well, economic development has been a key part of my time in Overland Park for the last 16 years. We have a very active economic development activity. We are active in New York. We are active in California. I would encourage my opponent to learn more about the city and have a better understanding of what we have done and what we do on a regular basis. What we are as Overland Park is we are a city of offices. That is our economic engine. We're not a manufacturing community. We're a community of office space. What we have done successfully is make sure that when those companies from California want to move and create an office in Overland Park, we have office space available for them. We have been very proactive in encouraging the development community to make sure that those buildings are ready to go and there is space available for those companies when they come here. If we don't have the space, we're not getting the company. And that's been one of our high priorities here in Overland Park. We have done that through working with developers and working with the state. The state of Kansas has a very good incentive program for companies to relocate in the state of Kansas. Mike, you're probably familiar with that because your employer got $47 million on that program when you relocated AMC to Leawood. The state is very active. Incentives from the state make a big difference, and incentives and public investments from the state can help us make sure that we land those jobs in Overland Park.
Thank you very much. We'll start with you, Curt, on the next question, number 5. As you're aware, our current city manager has announced his retirement. What qualities and characteristics would you like to see in the next city manager?
Well, city manager plays a key role in the operation and the future of our city. We've been blessed to have long-serving city managers. Bill Ebel has been an incredible public servant. He brings unique skills of being an engineer as well as a city manager, which has been helpful to us to put together plans, infrastructure plans, to make sure that our capital improvement plan is structured in a way to address our infrastructure needs. It's time our next city manager is going to have different talents and different skills. From my point of view, the next city manager needs to have a broader vision of what a city of 200,000 people includes. We're no longer a bedroom community. We haven't been a bedroom community since the 1990s. And I don't think this community wants to go back to that. What we want to do is make sure that we are building a city that competes with Nashville and Dallas. We want to make sure that we run efficiently. That's why we have the lowest property tax in the state of Kansas. We want a city that attracts talent, that attracts families, and where people can start and grow a business. And a city manager that has those kind of experiences and backgrounds is going to be key when I'm mayor to make my selection for the next city manager.
Okay, thank you. Mike, as you're aware, our current city manager has announced his retirement. What qualities and characteristics do you want to see in the next city manager?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to thank Bill Evil for all the services he's given the city of Overland Park. I think the next city manager that I'd like to be the person that we'll be hiring needs to have a business experience in addition to city government. I think it's imperative that they have the business experience so they know how to develop strategic visioning, and also have the experience to know how to do government accounting. It's very different than public accounting. I'm very familiar with public accounting. Government accounting is a little bit different, so they need to have a blend of both of those things. They need to have analytical skills to be able to do multi-year analysis of where trending is going so that we can look at these increases that are happening in the budgets and what's causing them and do the analysis to figure out what we need to do to get to the root cause to stop it. They need to have collaborative skills. It's a large organization. One of the most important things for a chief executive is to be able to work across multiple functional disciplines, multiple personalities, all kinds of different ethnicities and religions, and get things done. So that collaboration is key. They need to have a strength of character to know when to say okay, and the tough question of when to say no, we can't do that. While we're on the topic of property taxes being the lowest and Overland Park has the lowest property tax, let's dispel that myth, okay? We have economies of scale in Overland Park. If you wanted to raise $50 million between Olathe and Overland Park, it's all on valuation and mill rate. The valuation of Overland Park is $4 billion that it's assessed on. In Olathe, it's $2.1 billion. If you need to raise $50 million, the mill rate for Overland Park would be 24.2. The mill rate for Overland Park would be 12.5, which is pretty much where it is. So that mill rate is good, but it's not an assessment of our efficiency and how well we run our city to keep expenses low. Olathe uses 30%, the property tax makes up 30% of their budget, and Overland Parks, it makes up 23% of our budget. So we have many alternate funding mechanisms than Olathe does.
Okay, thank you. Mike, we'll start with you on question number 6. Since its founding in 1960, Overland Park leaders have had a long history of visionary planning. What do you believe the city should do to ensure the city's prosperity for the next 60 years?
We did have a great vision back in 1961, and one of the founders was Dick Bond. I happen to have known Dick Bond and worked with Dick Bond. He and I served on the board at Caw Valley Center for 8 years. I was chairman of that for the last 3 years when we built a facility at the Olathe Medical Center. He was a great guy and he was a visionary. And he did it when he was 30 years old, which is amazing. But again, as Curt has said, Overland Park was founded on single family neighborhoods, bedroom communities, suburbia, with a great vision along College Boulevard to bring business, commercial development, and office space. And that vision lasted through the 1990s, and it worked very well. I disagree with Curt on what residents want. They do want to return to some of that bedroom community. They want their neighborhoods to feel like neighborhoods again and not mini urban areas with apartment buildings going up 200, 300, 400 at a crack. That important vision has fallen prey to spot zoning. Let me read you the definition of spot zoning. The process of singling out a small parcel of land for a use classification totally different from that of the surrounding area for the benefit of the owner of that property to the detriment of many other owners, like what's happening at Deer Creek, like what's happening at 151st and Lamar, where there's apartments going up there, and what's happening at Brookridge. Our future, the success of our future, is returning to the roots of things that made us great and not letting developers run this city and giving them tax benefits to be able to do it. return the city to the residents and let them decide what happens in their community. And if it's a bedroom community with a lot of commercial development there, let's work that and not turn it into a concrete jungle of apartment buildings that causes runoff problems and congestion.
Thank you. Curt, since its founding in 1960, Overland Park leaders have had a long history of visionary planning. What do you believe the city should do today to ensure the city's prosperity for the next 60 years?
Well, thank you for that question, because I think that's the key issue between me and my opponent. The plans that we're implementing today are based on community discussions, are based on community input. And next year, we're going to be doing another community discussion about creating a plan for the next 10 years. It's going to be the largest community discussion that we've ever had about the future of Overland Park. That discussion is going to talk about housing. It's going to talk about making sure that we're a welcoming community. It's going to talk about infrastructure. It's going to talk about jobs. And it's going to talk about development. All of those pieces are going to be part of this community discussion. I put this in the budget starting over a year ago because it is time for us as a community to come together and build a consensus about where we want to go as a community. The idea that we are breaking the law in approving projects is wrong. Spot zoning is illegal. We do not spot zone. Rezoning, it is a whole public process. And I encourage anybody, those of you who've been through the process, some get approved, some don't get approved. That's part of the process. You know, property owners have rights. They have the right to be able to ask for change of the use of their piece of property. Doesn't mean they get it. Doesn't mean that that's going to happen. So, but that's a sign of a successful community. Overland Park is successful, and our property values are increasing. Our neighborhoods are growing. Our existing neighborhoods are regreening. And that's because of the vision that we've been implementing in my time on the city council. And I look forward to leading the community next year in an open discussion about where we want to go for the next 10 to 15 years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Curt, you're first up on the next question. What elements of Vision, Metcalf, and Forward OP do you believe are the most important for the future of Overland Park?
So I think both Forward OP and Vision Metcalf look to the future and not to the past. Both of them were large public discussions of Overland Park residents, business owners, about where they wanted the community to go. It was not a city vision, it was a community vision. And that is key to keeping Overland Park moving forward. Are there some people who would like there to be no additional construction? There probably are, and I understand that point of view. But what we have successfully done in Overland Park is to develop in a way that is complementary to neighborhoods, because from my first time I ran 16 years ago, I've always said, what I do is about neighborhoods and jobs. If our neighborhoods aren't successful, Overland Park will not be successful. And if you look at Metcalf Avenue, we are implementing the vision of the community. We are taking empty, falling apart buildings and replacing them with new infrastructure, new buildings, new businesses, all of them which pay taxes. They pay taxes to the school district. They add value to the neighborhood. Just go to downtown Overland Park, go to Strang Hall. I encourage anybody to go to Strang Hall and see what the impact has been to downtown Overland Park of the development we've done down there. I've always loved downtown Overland Park before, was wonderful, and today it's better. Between what we've done downtown and what we've done in Thompson Park, we have built a multi-generational place for the community to come together. And that is what we can do at different scales and different, very specific locations. if that's what the community wants to do through this community discussion process.
Okay, Mike, I'll repeat the question. What elements of Vision Metcalf and Forward OP do you believe are the most important for the future of Overland Park?
Sure. I think the most important elements of Vision Metcalf are reclaiming those elements of along Metcalf that have been abandoned, like the car dealerships, the gas stations and those things, to be able to try to reclaim those of the buildings that aren't being used anymore. And I think there's some good things that can happen with that. And I've said in other forums, I think the plan is a good plan, that we can rebuild and retake some of those neighborhoods and some of those businesses. The issue is not should we do those things and rebuild that area. The issue is how does it get funded? Are there going to be TIFs? Are there going to be star bonds? Are there going to be tax subsidies? My answer to that is no, unless it's a blighted area and someone needs some degree of incentive to redo it. But for the most part, these should be businesses that want to invest in that area, and it should be their capital that gets invested, not the taxpayer capital, unless it goes to a vote. We get the residents' opinions to it. Let's also talk about something that Curt mentioned earlier, consensus about density. In one of the other debates, Curt said that we need more density. We're talking about affordable housing, and that's how we're going to bring people that work here to live here. And he said we need to work on a consensus with the residents. And he said we need to explain to them what density means and how their neighborhoods are going to change. My response to that was, we don't need to have that conversation. We shouldn't have that conversation with the residents about how their neighborhoods are going to change. The neighborhood should stay the way they are. They should be, if they're single family homes, that's the way they should be, unless there's a land there that's already been zoned for that. And I'm a capitalist. I want to grow business. I want to grow development. I want to grow residents. I just want to do it in the right way and not have it be on the backs of the taxpayers of Overland Park.
All right, it's a pretty good segue to question 8, and Mike, you're up first on this one. According to the Johnson County Community Housing Study, Overland Park needs approximately 4,600 owner-occupied housing units at or below $250,000, and approximately 2,700 rental units with monthly rent at or below $1,000 to satisfy attainable housing needs by 2030. What is your reaction to this finding, and what specific proposals would you bring to the table to support attainable housing goals?
As we said earlier, Overland Park has been developed as a suburban community of single-family homes and planned neighborhoods, and that's what it should primarily be. We continue to build dense apartment buildings along main thoroughfares, and it's not just that they're there. It's causing congestion and runoff problems that's downstream in many places. We do need some more affordable housing, because the apartments that have been approved so far that are out there are not affordable. They're $1,000 and up to $3,000 or more for 2-bedroom apartments. We still have some affordable housing in northern Overland Park. You can still buy a home in the low 200,000s, 15% down. You got an $800 a month mortgage, which is less than what you're going to pay in the existing luxury apartments. We do need more single-family homes. Again, from 2012 to 19, there were almost 6,500 more apartment units built in single-family homes. Where were we then in trying to build more single-family homes? That's what we need to do now. The housing prices have risen across the country. It's not just Overland Park for the past 18 months because of COVID and other things. There are bidding wars happening in Connecticut, Cincinnati, St. Louis, and LA for these same homes. What we need to do is work with the home builders and get more supply. It's as simple as economics 101, supply and demand. There aren't enough homes. We need to build more homes with the builders and find ways to do that, and some affordable housing. Maybe some of the answer is to incent the home builders to build the more affordable homes and pass those savings on to the homeowners. And that way we win. We can do with even existing apartments. There's some programs out there now that give discounts to law enforcement, teachers, and police. we should encourage that even more to make that more affordable. And we can still put up apartment buildings that are affordable in the right places without tax incentives.
Thank you. Curt, let me read through this question again for you. According to the Johnson County Community Housing Study, Overland Park needs approximately 4,600 owner-occupied housing units at or below $250,000, and approximately 2,700 rental units with monthly rent at or below $1,000 to satisfy attainable housing goals by 2030. What is your reaction to this finding, and what specific proposals would you bring to the table to support attainable housing?
This is going to be one of our biggest challenges in the next 10 years. When you're a city that is successful as we are, land prices are high. So trying to build new single-family housing in the $200,000 to $250,000 is hard. I have a client in Bate City. They're having a hard time building them in Bate City, Missouri, where land prices are a lot different. So what I have been doing is we started a study called Infill Development Study to take a look at our city ordinances around small-scale development so that we can support townhouses, condos, and other kind of smaller projects that we believe can be in that affordable window. Staff is in the process of reviewing our ordinances, and next year they will have a report for us on how we can change our development ordinances, not zoning laws, development ordinances, about how we can make those happen, is number one. The other one is we are in the process already of converting 3 extended stay hotels into affordable, attainable apartments within Overland Park. It's kind of the low-hanging fruit that's out there for us to provide housing to our police, firefighters, and teachers on a rental basis, on a quick basis. So we're going to make a big impact there. And so the biggest challenge, it's going to be part of this community discussion we're going to have next year, is housing choices. How can we as a community make that happen on a wider scale? We've recently approved a project at 87th and Farley, where we coordinated with the neighborhood to get some duplexes that are for sale units approved, which is an infill development. It should be affordable. We're going to continue to do that, and it's going to take innovative thinking, and it's going to take continuing to work with the industry to deliver that in Overland Park.
Thank you. We've got a few questions now that are a little shorter, easier on the moderator, but I don't think they're any easier to answer. Curt, you're first up. Question is, how would you describe your leadership style and how you believe your style will be effective in leading a city of nearly 200,000 residents and a council of 12 members?
Well, I am a collaborative problem solver. That's what I've done my whole career and what I've done for 16 years on the city council and 16 years on the Mid-America Regional Council. You want to talk about a challenging group. The Mid-America Regional Council is made up of elected officials from 119 cities and 8 counties. To get them to come together and agree on a policy or an initiative that should work across the whole metropolitan area, that's a challenge. And I'm able to do that, just like I have been on the city council, to implement change, is to talk with people about what is important to them, starting with our residents and then with the elected officials, and find out what is important to them and how can we come together and move our community forward based on those issues.
Thank you. Mike, how would you describe your leadership style and how you believe your style will be effective in leading a city of nearly 200,000 residents and a council of 12 members?
Sure. Thanks. I think some of the things that, if you've been in executive in business or in government, some of the things around collaboration and problem solving are pretty much table stakes. You have to have those things to be able to work with people. If I were to describe my particular leadership style, it's founded on a basis of integrity. Whenever I've had people that are working for me directly, or when I've worked for someone, the first conversation I have with them is, here's what you can expect from me. Full disclosure, total honesty, and total candidness. I will always tell you the truth. I will always tell you all the truth, so you never have to wonder about what's behind what I'm telling you or what my motivations are. So first of all, it starts with integrity. With that, you build trust between the people, and you have developed some respect along the way. And that way, people will always trust what you have to say to them. They never wonder what's behind it. And then you can get to the things like being a collaborative leader, being a problem solver, working with disparate organizations. And that's part of the key too. There are so many different kinds of styles and people and backgrounds and beliefs. To be able to have that integrity, respect for the individuals, and the trust, you can build the collaboration, you can build good decision-making along analytical lines, emotional lines, and other.
Thank you very much. Question number 10, and you've got this one first. Please provide an example of when you have utilized a collaborative style of leadership to solve a problem or to achieve an innovative solution.
To me,
That's you, Mike.
to me. Okay, that's a pretty interesting question, how to find the right example. I think the one that's the most impactful is when I left Applebee's, I was planning to retire. I got a call from the CEO of AMC Theaters and asked if I would come down and talk to him about leading their technology organization. I did, went through the interviewing process, 3 or 4 weeks later, decided to take the job. I found out that AMC there was a lot more to it than what I had thought in terms of problems and issues. It was owned by 5 private equity companies. It had not been invested in technology in 10 years. So when I got there, it was about to fall on its face. Everything was antiquated, everything was legacy, hardly anything in technology was supportable anymore. And there was infighting everywhere. There were talks about books being thrown at people in meetings. So the first thing we did was we set the stage for how things were going to be. And we worked together as a group. We collaborated. We had honest conversations. We were allowed to have spirited debate among my team, and we did that. And we had spirited debate. We were respectful. We were analytical. We used all the tools that we had, and we came together as a group. That group stayed together for 13 years at AMC and was the leading exhibitor in technology and revenue growth in the entire industry. And that's what enabled us to acquire all the companies in Europe and the rest of North America. That's probably the best example, because that same team who couldn't get along and was working with outdated technology, we convinced the senior executives and the private equity companies and the shareholders after it was back public, that we earned the right to take their capital dollars and invest it and do the right thing for our guests and for our company and our shareholders.
Thank you, Mike. Curt, please provide an example of when you've utilized a collaborative style of leadership to solve a problem or achieve an innovative solution.
Thank you. Well, I think as when you're mayor, it's important to have an example that is a government-related example. I have lots of private industry examples that I could pull, but I think Vision Metcalf is probably the best example of collaboration. So 16 years ago, I was knocking on doors in my first election, and what I heard from people at the door, similar to what I do this year, which is, we love Overland Park, we love our neighborhood, but the next comment I heard is, we're worried about these aging commercial centers on Metcalf and on 95th Street and inside 435 Loop. If you remember, if you were here 16 years ago, there was a lot of blight in those buildings. And I told the people that voted for me that I would push for us as a city to take a study and see what options there are for us to fix that problem. Through that, we did a public process identifying what the issues were with those structures and those buildings. We had the community was involved, the community asked questions, the community understood through that process. And the collaboration and the insight that came out of that, we went in with no vision of what the output was going to be from Vision Medicare. The outcome was delivered, created, synthesized from the input of the residents of Overland Park. And now today, from that input, we have taken 12 blighted properties and redeveloped those 12 blighted properties into important assets for our community. And our residents are enjoying the benefits of reinvestment. You may remember before that, all the construction was south of the southern part of town. So the community came together and delivered results. So.
Okay, thank you, Curt. Thank you, Mike. I believe that's the end of our question and answer part of the forum. So we'll stay on time. We'll move on and have closing statements from each of you. 2 minutes long, and we'll start with Curt.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you everybody for paying attention and hopefully staying awake through this discussion. This is vital to where Overland Park is going to be. Me and my opponent, we have a completely different vision, I think, of what Overland Park is and what Overland Park can become. Mine is based on a community vision that we're going to do next year to set us forward, building on the successes that we have. We have great neighborhoods. We're built on great neighborhoods. We have great safety. We're built on great public safety. We have great schools. We're built on great schools. How do we want to work on that moving forward? Also, I'm an independent running in a nonpartisan election. That is our tradition in Overland Park, and I am a firm believer in nonpartisan elections. That's because as your mayor, I want to implement Overland Park ideas and Overland Park priorities, not priorities from Topeka and not priorities from Washington, D.C. We have been successful because we worry about us. We let others worry about the bigger pictures. That's why we have other elected officials. We have state reps and we have congressmen. That's their job to worry about the big national issues. As your mayor, I'm going to worry about Overland Park issues. That's what I'm going to do. That's what's been successful for 60 years. And if I'm elected mayor, it's going to continue to be successful moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Closing statement.
Again, thank you all for being here, Curt. Good to be with you again. Thank you very much. We've covered a lot of ground in this forum. We've talked about increasing taxes, rising crime, rezoning, excessive apartment growth, infrastructure debt. The key to solving these problems, I believe, is returning to our roots and listening to the residents of Overland Park and having their voices heard and listened to and considered as part of city government and driving these decisions. I think city council, looking at Brookridge and many of the other things, have ignored the voice of the residents for too many years and have given too many gifts to the development community for too long, rezoning at will and tax subsidies. Residents of Overland Park have a choice for their mayor right now. Who do they want the mayor to serve? Special business interests or the residents of Overland Park? Curt's campaign finance report reads like the yellow pages of who's who in the development community. 40 of his 185 donors are from that development community, representing, and they're not small ones. 60% of his donations come from developers, attorneys, civil engineers, construction companies, commercial real estate. My campaign finance report reads like the white pages of Overland Park residents. My donations come from residents. My ideas came from listening to residents, and my solutions will be for the residents. I'll put residents first with support of law enforcement, business growth, stop the tax giveaways, use tax dollars effectively, and work to repair our decaying infrastructure. You have a choice. Elect a mayor that's supported by special interests and will serve special interests primarily, or a mayor who's driven by residents and will serve the residents. If you choose me, I will serve you, the residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of you for being here today and thank everyone for watching online. I'd especially like to thank our candidates for participating in today's forum. We know and appreciate the time and the effort and the sacrifices that it takes to be willing to serve the community, and it starts now during the campaign. And we very much appreciate it and want to thank you for being here. For all of you, a recording of this forum will be posted on our voter education website, votejoco.com. Should be up within a couple of days, I think, Chris. Finally, we'd encourage all of you to learn as much as you can about the candidates and get out and vote. On that website, there's not only will be links to these forums, but there's also questionnaires that candidates have answered. They'll give you some greater insight into their positions and their viewpoints. Advanced voting in person for the upcoming election begins on Saturday, October 23rd, and the polls will be open on Election Day, Tuesday, November 2nd, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Hope we have a great turnout. It's an important election, as always, more so even, I think, than we've had in the past few years, and I encourage everyone to vote. Thank you all for being here, and have a great evening.
Oh, sad day.